This is a test of the Boundary Park alert system.
Hello, welcome to the Boundary Park Alert System podcast with me, Matt Dean. This is a different episode today. It's being recorded in the week. It's Thursday, so no Latics game on the weekend. We're playing Woking on Tuesday because they've got the the FA Cup Trophy semi-final. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to ask for an interview about SportsTown with Darren Royle, and he said, sure. Can Luke come? Because I figured that'd probably be a decent amount of people to talk to. And Darren said, no, Sue really wants to come as well. So I've got Darren Royle, Luke Rothwell and Sue Schofield in the studio at QPod. Hello and welcome.
Hey Matt.
Hello, how are you doing? All right?
You all right?
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
It's handy. It's only close to Boundary Park, isn't it? So I don't know if that's where you've been today. I mean, obviously you've got your other business in Hollingwood as well, but
Yeah, we've been to that. We've just come from Boundary Park,
yeah. Perfect. So this is the first time that we've spoke to you two. Anyway, Luke and Sue on the podcast. Obviously we spoke to you before, Darren, since the takeover.
Wow.
So I know. Yeah, so that's coming up to 3 years in July, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, can you both just sum it up? Like, you don't have to go into detail. Just like just Sue, can you just sum up what 3 years has been like in a nutshell for you?
I think the longest and shortest 3 years of my life.
Yeah.
It's been a bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah,
but I think things are turning a corner, aren't they? So,
it's definitely a roller coaster. I often think it'd be great to kind of tap into our brains of what we thought it would be like 3 years down the line and what we'd actually experience and where we would be. I think when I really look at it and the benefits and, the good parts of it, I think what sums it up was when, how much Mum loves it. I've mentioned this before, but the fact that she, when Dad set off on the row this time, and he was setting off, I think it was on the Sunday, and I said, "Oh, Mum, it's not long now." She goes, "Oh yeah, I'm flying back today." I said, "Well, Dad doesn't leave for a few days." She went, "Oh, I'm not watching him go over the horizon. Latics are playing at Bromley, I think it was, wasn't it?" And she says, "I want to get back to watch the boys." I says, "Oh, you're going to Gatwick?" She went, no, I'm going to Manchester, so I'll go on the bus with the boys. I think really for us, that's it's a massive highlight. Our Mum and Dad are like in the 70s, and we've got to enjoy the 70s and, as much as we can. And it's amazing, kind of one of them unintended consequences, really. I wouldn't have expected Mum to be as engaged in it as she is.
Yeah.
So I know there's loads and loads of different elements thrown in a football club and what's happened in the last 3 years, but that really, to me, just thinks, it's all worth it,
I know it wasn't really something that was kind of like on your radar.
No,
that long ago, was it?
No, exactly. But there's loads of little stories like that, isn't it? And it's definitely something completely different to what we've been used to in our lives. It's a definite about turn, in lots of respects. But absolutely loving every minute of it as well.
Because obviously, SportsTown's very much about the future.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about, and you guys, in the not that distant past, were never even conceiving of owning a football club. Darren, you've been involved in football, and it's more, it's more of the family business, if you like, than it is with you guys. But I'm really interested about the SportsTown project. Was it something that was like in the mind right at the start as a collective, and because obviously the land around Boundary Park has obviously been a big attraction for people in the past, and how that land was to be used, was that something that you had a number of different sort of discussions about, different ideas about? Was SportsTown always a leader? Did it come out of left field, or what were the initial thoughts about how you might utilise that whole land at Boundary Park?
Well, when we first were looking at the opportunity and we went up on the top floor, I think it's fair to say both Sue and I thought this isn't just the football club, the opportunity of loads and loads of things. What could the top floor be? What could the surrounding land be? How there was nothing set in stone, and it could be anything really. But it was more a feeling that the opportunity was there to do something, and the SportsTown even name has evolved. It's something. In terms of an education space, it's been something that's Darren's been involved in. So it's definitely Darren's idea as such as using education to provide for Boundary Park to be used more than 20, 40 times a year, and for it to be used every single day, and the education and sport dovetails together so well in terms of you can use the boxes for classrooms on non-match days, so they don't trip over each other, and they definitely can cohabit very well. So you can have it at the top floor as a wedding venue, but how often is there a 300-400 person wedding event or wedding venue, or so education is obviously something that's evolved, and definitely for my son, from my mind, you're aware that we're next to the hospital, you're aware that we're next to Clayton playing fields, but the more and more we think about it, the synergies of all those three coming together, it's a multiplier that we have. Much more than other clubs around, similar size clubs, Stockport or Rochdale or Halifax. They're very much landlocked, where we're not landlocked. We've actually got amazing neighbours. And, SportsTown has been a catalyst to forge and create a vision, really.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is that... you were obviously involved in bringing the Rothwells in. Was this something that was brewing in your head then before the takeover as a potential with the education and that kind of thing? Did you lead with these kind of ideas when you were trying to attract people in?
I think when we looked at the opportunity, there's all the land as Luke said, and there's the partners that are there, the dots that need joining, and the stuff. Even now, if we do this in 3 years' time, it'll look differently, won't it? There's stuff that we don't know, opportunities that just keep coming out because of this now, which is amazing. One of the early away games, one of the hard yards that we had was Bromley away, and I remember following Frank round. It was looking round Bromley, and I've spoke about this last time. It was just a well-oiled machine with a great business model. And obviously they were turning out really good footballing performances that's got them promoted. So it's not rocket science, some of it. It's, some of the football clubs that have to work hard, marginal gains to generate revenue to pay for it or pay towards it and lose a bit less, do that. So, that was a good reminder about what kind of environment we need to create. But then you look at Oldham as a place and where there's gaps and opportunities, and it's just something that has evolved and it will evolve. It will continue to evolve. It's been a team effort. It's been working with education executives at the council in Oldham, at other establishments as well, to make sure that we're not replicating stuff. But it's a brilliant opportunity for the football club. I have to say that first of all, because if I'm an Oldham Athletic supporter, I want to know how it's going to benefit us, and you might come on to ask about that. So that is a really good opportunity. But for the town, when we came together, if you remember the purposing day with Kevin Roberts, what he did at Saatchi and with the All Blacks and all the other organisations, that purposing day, the dream was to build a proper, positive, sustainable Oldham, not just the football club. And SportsTown answers that. It answers to that. It's going to be great for the town, for the young people. It's going to be great for the economy if it realises its potential and it keeps growing the scope. And it's going to be good for the professional teams in the town as well. And obviously, Latics is our passion.
I think this is the thing. So, like, obviously, social media is not a barometer for the sanity of any fan base or anything in particular. But you do sort of see some different perspectives and all that kind of stuff. You you get people moaning about, well, we should be winning football matches now and blah, blah, blah. You're only 3 years in. I mean, I think, any rational person would say that the club is looking significantly better off. Things are looking far better than they have done for a long time. But it's costing money, innit? And you've had to start from a point where the club had been underinvested in for a long, long time. So it's not just about spending money on players and playing staff. Everything needed fixing. And it still will need more investment and stuff like that. Sue, you look over the accounts.
Yeah.
How I want to come on to a lot of football accounts have been released for 23-24 of late, but what's that been like? You've gone from a business, like managing a business that's doing really well, I guess, and it's all like, pluses and positives and things. And what's it been like going back and looking and starting working with a business that's not doing well and in comparison?
To say that it's not anxiety inducing is it'd be a lie, and I suppose you see the figures that it was a loss of 3.5 million or something like that, and you go, gosh, that's a lot of money. And I think to kind of put it into perspective, that it's £10,000 a day, and that's the kind of figures. And I was speaking only earlier to Luke and Darren about, I've seen stuff on social media myself saying you shouldn't be concentrating on SportsTown, you should be concentrating on the football club. Well, actually, we're split in a number of ways. We run other businesses together, and there's the football club. There's also SportsTown, and so we've got to split ourselves in a way that SportsTown is the future for the club, the future for the town. We need to strike that happy medium as well between the being an absentee owner and an owner that is actually there, and also while maintaining our day-to-day jobs to sustain the football club for the shorter term. So, there's a lot of balls to juggle there. Yeah. And so our primary focus has to be on our day-to-day businesses, to make sure that can sustain the club in the short term, but also the longer term. So it's a massive juggling act, and to get back to your question, it's difficult to see positive numbers and us almost on our day-to-day businesses, we've led on a crest of a wave for quite a while through our hard work. So to actually see that and then go, right, okay, well, these are all minus numbers, and it's difficult. It is difficult.
It's a challenge for you anyway, isn't it? To turn those numbers around.
And we've got family as well.
Well, that's the thing.
Young family.
It must have had quite a big impact from a personal point of view in terms of your time and your commitment and your energy.
Yeah.
To take this on top of the. I'm sure you were busy anyway, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it goes from working like it's six days a week plus, so it is difficult to juggle it all, and with family, like I've got a young son, a 12-year-old son. Luke's got kids of a similar age, but it's good that we get to spend the time together as a family as well, Yeah,
and I think that's right. We do spend a lot of time together at the football club, which we probably won't do, as much as. We're a really tight family, I don't mean tight financially. But no, I think Sue's absolutely right. When it's everything's stacked against a club of a traditional, like we are. We own the ground, which is brilliant, and surrounding land and the club as well, so we're kind of in control of all of that. And then you do look enviously at some of the other clubs which are council-owned grounds. You know, I mean, for example, you know, York, who are, you know, they're billionaire owners, aren't they? We're a local family business, employs 50 people. It's a different world. And, the York only get charged 100 grand a year from the council, and that includes everything on the stadium. You know, they only pay, and that is including the grounds and the pitch being marked out and the grass being cut. They just get charged 100 grand a year. Our water bill's more than 100 grand a year. You know, so even though, you know, it's not a level playing field, you know, in terms of like distribution of, I don't know, it could go on and on about, you know, broadcast money and the rest of it, losing the academy, and it's all we're really at a really difficult position in terms of it is £10,000 a day. However, when we took over the club, we'd say we'll get it back where it belongs, we'll get it back to League One, and we'll make it self-sustaining, and we're absolutely focused on that. And you know, we're fortunate that our businesses are continuing to do well. We can sustain this, you know, at this level for a period, so we don't want to be £10,000 a day for the rest of our lives, clearly. No. But once we get out of this league, then it changes. You know, it be you know, that's instantly like over £2 million a year from either the central money off and we get our academy back and all the rest of it. So it then becomes a lot more palatable. We'd love to get. Obviously, we need to get out of this league. that's without a doubt. But it clearly isn't easy. You know, we're fourth, which is probably. We've got, which is probably where our budget is compared to others in the division. So you know, it's and we're doing absolutely everything, you know, we can. We're not overstretching ourselves in terms of our businesses. So we then we're worried about our financial health. That's not the case, you know. But we are trying to strike that right balance, and you know, it is difficult on time. It is difficult on family, but actually, I think we're getting the balance right, you know. I think in terms of how much time we spend at the club, how much time we spend at the family businesses, how much we spend with our own families. They might disagree. Some might say we spend too much time, some might not enough. I'm not too sure. But no, it's we're getting better at it as well. You know, it's 3 years. It doesn't seem like 3 years sometimes. It seems like it was yesterday. Like today we changed the gates at Boundary Park because, you know, they're absolutely shocking. I think how's this taken us 3 years? But there's been a lot of things on the to-do list, you know. But anyway.
It's like you said earlier on, so it's like it's gone in a flash, but then it seems like a long time as well. Because it does, I mean, just that, you know, that first game against Dorking, walking down Sheepfoot Lane, when you see it, I can see it so clearly in my mind. It was like it was yesterday, but it is 3 years ago, and there's been a lot of stuff that's gone on since then. So, I mean, when I told Andy Halliwell that I was interviewing you, I was like, I said, can I send you some questions? He sent me 27 questions.
Only 27?
Just 27, yeah. I mean, that was probably his like fifth edit or something by that stage. But so we won't be going through all those. But the thing about the accounts and what you were saying about sustainability and the amount of money that you put in, you said about the 3.5 million. Obviously, when you're going back and fixing things that are age old, there's always going to be a sort of more of a I guess of an investment to get things up to a certain point. But just looking at some of the other clubs' accounts, this is probably, I don't know if this is going to strike terror into. I'm sure you know all this anyway. But looking at your clubs that are similar in stature, I guess, like Huddersfield or local in locality, Huddersfield Town, you know. 23 million in wages for every £100 in revenue. £127 spent in wages. Bolton, with including their hotel, lost over 11 million. Barnsley, operating loss was 9.6 million, but they had player sales which reduced it to 2.9. Fleetwood Town, now we're much bigger than Fleetwood Town, lost 9.3 million in 23-24, taking the total losses to over 40 million. The club is funded by parent loans. Salford, as we know, is you know, they chuck it 28 million so far. Stockport again exceeded over 21 million that they've lost now in this time. So as much as we need to get out of this division, because we'll get more money coming in, the costs escalate, don't they? Particularly when it comes to player wages. I mean, the thing that makes football unsustainable is player wages. And that's the cost, isn't it? So how, I guess the question is how much SportsTown will contribute in terms of revenue. I mean, obviously, because it's easy to see the benefits to the town, young people actually making use of all the space and all that kind of stuff. It's obvious, but in terms of, you won't have exact figures, but in terms of generating revenue, how will that make the club more sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's added benefits. So one of the biggest ones, if you take us back to probably when Tony Philliskirk was here and the academy then, and you looked at the model and you looked at the productivity of it, you look at football in Manchester, Greater Manchester, it's a global hotbed. So the amount of young talent out there that we're currently missing out on, and Rochdale and Bury as well, which is a scandal, I think, that none of us have got E-P academies.
It's kind of like all your history just doesn't count for anything, isn't it?
Probably 900 footballing opportunities.
Yeah.
But if you look at that for us, and you should get Tony Philliskirk on to talk about the academy and his time there.
Right.
But I'll certainly be speaking to him again to gain insights when we get promoted. But the SportsTown project and Little Wembley, at the moment, it's a dust bowl. It's, it is what it is. We all tongue-in-cheek call it Little Wembley.
Yeah.
What it's going to be is a state-of-the-art 3G pitch with everything that you would expect in terms of netting, fencing, floodlights in place, changing rooms. It's going to be a spiritual home for our academy, which we've never, ever had. And if you think about the power of that in terms of showing some young talent around, male or female, because we've got 170 young girls in the under-9s to under-16s programme who will have a home, as well as the boys programme as well as the full-time education programme, which we have now, 16 to 18. So they will have a spiritual home. We've been very fortunate to have some schools locally that have allowed us to use their pitches at a cost. And we'll be able to now move all our youth and junior players to that. Now, the power of that, we're going to be working with a very big junior football league as well, who will play from Boundary Park, which Oldham has never had, going back to when Paul Scholes, David May, Trevor Sinclair played for Boundary Park Juniors. All of their football was played outside of Oldham. So it's going to be a first that we're going to host and be a major host for a league in Oldham, which is a massive thing. But to have the academy there, because of it's being facilitated through SportsTown's grant to put that facility in place is massive. You can't underestimate that. James Tarkowski was on last night. Possibly he might think about tackling like that again.
I haven't seen it actually, that tackle.
It'd be the sweat would go down your forehead if you saw it.
Robust, wasn't it?
Robust. I think, well, even Duncan Ferguson said it was an ascended off offence.
It must have been bad then.
So, but, James Tarkowski, there's a great example of a lad from Oldham who's gone on to play at the highest level, and we want more of those.
Yeah.
So SportsTown and the facility, which will be unbelievable, it will enhance the whole look and feel, but the usability of it will be great from a community grassroots perspective as well. There's going to be so much opportunity there for young junior teams to play on that pitch, as well as education programs, as well as schools in Oldham as well.
So there'll be it obviously makes sense that because we need to start developing assets, and obviously you've got United. Which obviously, like they're going through there'll be a big rebuilding program, but they're always going to be a massive attraction. You've got City and their sports campus and all the stuff that they do, massive attraction. Stockport are obviously, investing and getting better. But it sounds like we could, with the creation of this, it could be like even third on the list of places. If you're coming to the region and you're looking at facilities and what's as a young footballer, Oldham could be as competitive, if not more so, or attractive to some of the other clubs in the area. So that makes sense. What in terms of the land and when it all gets developed and everything, you've got, I think there's going to be cricket facilities and a netball stadium. And all. Will the club benefit from like ongoing rents? How will it generate? And the university, will there be a generation of revenue and income off the site as well that feeds into supporting the business, the football business?
Yeah, I mean, SportsTown still costs us money as well. So if SportsTown's making revenue, us as a family, which is obviously common owners, then we'll have a few more quid to put in the football club if we choose, So that's definitely.
So the idea is to make the whole business sustainable, and then the money can, because obviously you need to balance the books, don't you, from what you put in it over time and things like that. And how long is this? Have you got because the reason finding of it's only about, I think I might have 65 million quid down, to fund it. Like how long do you think that what's the time scale for we get the first phase is Little Wembley, and with that 5 million, you can get cracking with that.
Yeah,
can you?
so
and then after that, it's just a case of trying to build momentum and attract investment.
The beauty about this is the investment now gets 4 sports pathways, 4 16 to 18, and then degree pathways as well. It's already going, but it enhances that into offering those opportunities for netball, cricket, and rugby as well. So it's independent of that. It's happening. The arena, which we've talked about, is something that would be a major thing, big expense, but it would also be a multi-use arena. It would offer opportunities for Northern Care Alliance to base some services in there. It would also offer opportunities for all kinds of other sports, wheelchair, rugby league, wheelchair basketball. Because of the prominence of netball in Oldham, it would be natural that there'd be a home there for netball and an opportunity for young players who, we've got the current under-16s national champions. They just Bluecoat School won recently at Loughborough playing there, but there's no home again. And I think Oldham Netball Club have just won the Premier League, and Manchester Thunder are obviously one of the top brands. So I think that's an enabler. But it would be many other things as well. A convention centre, which the town, doesn't have on that scale.
Yeah.
So it's multi-use. It's thinking about the multiple uses and value that it can give to the hospital, the trust, the sports clubs, and the sports as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, it sounds great, and what I love about it is it's looking to the future of Oldham and saying, yes, we can do something. And there'll be people that say, oh, well, we've had these false dawns before with this and Sports Park 2000. Oh, well, it never happens in Oldham. But without actually having the belief and the vision and the focus to do it, you're never going to do anything, are you? And so there's always going to be the doubters. But for me, I just feel like it's just incredibly positive. And obviously the rugby as well. I mean, there's great investment gone in there. There's success on the pitch, and it's exciting. It's exciting times for Oldham. In terms of the rugby, does this mean that the Roughyheads are going to be permanent residents at Boundary Park, and will they have a permanent home at Boundary Park, and will the stadium become to reflect the fact that it's a shared home in future? Is that part of the plan?
Yeah, I think it's we have a cracking relationship with Bill Quinn. We're really fortunate that the rugby's got such a backer. The amount that they're investing in their squad is incredible. And they're doing the championship. They're the second, I think, at the moment. And it's only Halifax that are in top of them. So, but so it's fantastic. They're being successful. It's good to get some silverware to go through Boundary Park, which obviously we've not had for a long time.
Absolutely.
But even when we first were looking at Little Wembley and what to do, it was to be a football and rugby facility. So it means it's a higher spec because the shot pad needs to be thicker, and obviously the sizes are a little bit different, and the fencing needs to be a lot higher, and all the rest of it. So there's a it's not just talking about it; it's actually true that we are working together.
And that'll be where the rugby train, and it'll be where the first team train, will it?
No, so I think it's also a bit like, I suppose we have Chapel Road, that they my lads on the pathway for the rugby, and there's a lot of kids playing a lot of rugby league, which pitches take an hammering. So I think. There's hundreds of kids. There's probably about 250, I think, turn up to their pathway, which, they're doing an amazing job of getting involved with the grassroots rugby clubs. I think, having the first team of a professional rugby, the local rugby team, turning up to kids' training sessions and having questions and answers and stuff is credit to them. They've got a lot of work to do. To get the rankings up to be able to get promoted into the Super League, which is an interesting concept, but it's definitely focusing the mind on them. And so to say that it's all going to be there, well, it can't be, because pitch is just you need a lot of pitches to do that. So they've got a home at Melrose as well for the first team to train at. But the having a 3G pitch is also would enable them to train when they need to, because it's like the same as football, isn't it? You train on it, but only when you have to. And that's maybe if you're playing a game. I mean, I think they played Sheffield at the weekend, and that was on a 3G pitch. And I listened to the commentary, and you could hear that it was causing all kinds of trouble on the bounce of the ball and the rest of it. So just like football, if we're playing on a Saturday at football, would we train on the Thursday on Little Wembley? Well, it makes sense to, doesn't it? And I think I'm sure it'd be the same for the rugby. So they have the whole home in Melrose, but in terms of having it's our intention, it's the club's intention, it's the rugby's intention, to make sure that Boundary Park's used as much as possible, and the having more games there, and obviously the £1 million pitch was an enabler from the council, and the desire to have the rugby there, as a home, and for the rugby club to thrive. Well, it's happened, hasn't it? They've got promoted. They're not far off where they naturally will be. You always want Oldham to be a Super League team, but they're currently at the top of the Championship, and that's where they belong.
Where they were not very long ago.
Yeah, exactly. Getting 200 people and then getting promoted and having to go to Ashton and having 300 fans or something like that. We actually thought at one time that the rugby may play at Little Wembley, because if they've got attendances of 300-400, then maybe it's not cost effective to open the Joe Royle stand and the facilities and steward it and all the rest of it, and maybe they'll play at Little Wembley, but obviously they've gone past that now. But there could well be community games, there could well be under 15s Oldham schools games on there, but yeah, I think it's relationships that's working really well, and that continue to be, and they'll be having their education programs as well through SportsTown, which is, and long may that continue.
And do the plans for SportsTown include any future developments of Boundary Park? I mean, obviously the main stand is from the 1700s, and the Chaddy end's not been touched for a while. But I mean, obviously these are incredibly expensive things to do, aren't they? But obviously there's a lot more you can get out of a modern stadium than you can out of an older stadium.
Mm-hmm. I think in a perfect scenario, would replace the main stand, but I suppose in the list of priorities in that long job list, then a self-sustaining club of an asset that's been sweated 365 days a year rather than 23 home fixtures, that has to be the main priority at the moment. But there are ongoing conversations with various different parties, and if we can reconfigure a stand to house another
usage tenant,
then we'll go ahead with it. But it's not the highest on the list of priorities really, and it's the Joe Royle stands there that's 90% finished. Let's get that finished, and let's get that not losing money. And let's just go down the list one by one. We'd love to, but
of course, it's
priorities really.
Yeah, I think we obviously talked about SportsTown a hell of a lot, and the in our minds and through ourselves, and really what would be the ideal for us to, I guess, legacy's used a lot, but look back and think, wow, we made a huge difference. And I mentioned this on the launch day, but I'll repeat it because it's absolutely right in the crosshairs of what we're trying to achieve. Is that there could well be, and there will be, a kid in Oldham today that's on the edge of getting excluded from school. There's obviously been Laticsmind on been there for a long time. A PRU, which is a pupil referral unit. That's something that the Kingsland School are really interested on coming to Boundary Park, because if you're not engaged in education, but you're likely to be engaged in sport, then to be in and around Boundary Park is an environment where you're more likely to be engaged. Yeah. So there could well be hopefully the one of those children will enter into the Prue and then come out of the Prue engaged, and they could well then do a BTEC at Boundary Park and SportsTown, and they could then go, actually, I'm half decent at football or rugby or netball or cricket, and they'll be part of a professional club. I mean, how amazing is that? Our BTEC lads are, the goalkeepers, having shot practice, Fondop shooting against him during the week. I mean, how amazing is that as a 17-year-old, So, and then being engaged in education, they might not make it as a footballer, but they'll be in the education world then, and there'll be opportunities. And if that opportunity ends up being, do you know what? If I don't make it as a footballer, I wouldn't mind being a physiotherapist. So it will be that there will be a pathway available for that child who may be getting excluded today that could well come out of SportsTown. They've had a good time, which is a lot about it. They've had a great education. It's put them on the right path, and they have got a career that's going to be a benefit to themselves, but also the wider community. There's a shortage of physiotherapists, and there's
and they can do it in the hometown without having to leave the home, and that added expense of staying, moving away from your hometown. Yeah. So
I mean, that is exactly what it's about for us. I think that'll be incredible. And as I said, there's kids on the BTEC course that have got squad numbers at on the first team at Latics, and when they walked through the door 2 years ago, that would have been a million miles away from them. So it's we're not just like salespeople trying to say, oh, this might happen. It has happened. You know what I mean? Already, and now going on from that, it could well be that the main stand ends up being another education facility, whether it's a larger Prue facility, because there's a huge demand in Oldham for Prues that can't be satisfied, and that there's loads. The problem is there's so many opportunities, it's just lining them up. But the first one is obviously this £5 million, which is incredible. On Monday, maybe Tuesday, you'll start to see a digger or two, which Dad's over the moon about, and they'll start to tidy up the car park, and the potholes is just an absolute, bugbear of ours. But this gives us the opportunity to, create some netball courts, which creates another pathway, and create maybe an area for some indoor cricket nets, hopefully. We obviously need to get all this to go through planning, but the idea being that come September, October this year, we're able to market the courses at SportsTown, so that then in September 26th, it's starting to breathe life. So between now and then, we I guess as supporters, we're no more supporters than anybody else, is to bridge that gap between the short term and SportsTown coming online and the support that's going to give the football club and SportsTown, and we can't wait for that until the place is absolutely buzzing. The fans bars are open during the week, and students are in there playing darts and eating and drinking. It's all revenue, and just having the place just the heartbeat of the community. That's the small, little Wembley. Also September, October, top floor. September, October, the netball courts and all that stuff is a hell of a lot to do between now and then. There's lots of chats with architects. There's lots of where do you want your plug sockets and all that kind of stuff. It's not, but we'll do it, and it'll be a proud day really when that first student walks through the door. It's been a lot of talking and a lot of Hard work, yeah. But
and that's it. And that's even before that. Anything has been the first digger. Like you say, I've already had students coming through, but there's still a lot more to do, isn't there? A lot, but it's interesting. I mean, listening to you talk and then describing it, you can start to visualize it in your head in terms of the throng of activity, the people, the buzz, and towns need anchor institutions, don't they? They're really, really important, and football clubs are unique in that they tend to have been in towns for longer than most other things. 1895. Boundary Park since, was it 1905 or something like that? But it's a long time, and now there's aspirations for another 100 years, and obviously that must be really exciting for you. But you can plan, like you said before, Darren. You can plan ahead so far, but it's full of opportunities. It's also going to be full of obstacles and all these different kind of things. So I guess it's just a case of sort of saying, right, this is the vision, point yourself in that direction. And then with that in mind, try and make it happen as quickly as you can and try and attract that investment. Do you know where you're going to, exactly where you're going to get that from, but is it through grants? Is it through private funding? Have you got some irons in the fire already when it comes to securing that bigger pot of money that you need to deliver it all?
Yeah, so there's various models in existence already that's happened. So Lee Sports Village is close by, and that's a good example. So to look at what they've done and how they've done it, but there's a number of opportunities for either grants or loans around building out the rest of the infrastructure there. The important thing is that it's where we get to with this next 5 million in terms of how that's spent through SportsTown, because that's an important thing to know. Latics fans don't think that we're going to be able to buy another striker. The money's not going into the football club; it goes into SportsTown, and it's tightly governed as well by the process from the Community Regeneration Fund, and it has to be applied to what the bid purpose is and all those things that break out within that. So the actual capability in September 26 will be 100%. It's these other things which, there are planning permissions that need to be gained around an indoor arena. There's a whole load of planning around that. Yeah, the forefront of it is, where's the funding coming from? So we're looking at a number of different avenues for that.
Will you be trying to do it sort of like one piece at a time, like sort of building it up, as opposed to sort of like, that's the way it must.
I mean, like the £1 million that the council gave us to the pitch, that was phase one. Yeah. Phase two is the £5 million through the Community Regeneration Fund from the government.
Is that from central government then?
Well, and then it's central government have awarded it, but then the council have to kind of govern it and make sure that it's spent appropriately. So that's phase two, enables the regeneration of Little Wembley for community use, as well as and then the netball and the finishing off of the top floor to enable a university to come in. So then you that's our primary focus at the moment, while still keeping the phase three being, the wider development of the indoor arena. It's kind of right. Okay, well, if we get to a point where we've submitted planning in 5 years for that, and there's university on site or multiple universities on site, then I think we're in a good place, in 5 years' time. If universities are on site and established, and if the arena, if there's a funder there, or if there's grants that become available and planning's been submitted, can we see it being that it's in use in 5 years? That's on the cusp of achievable, but let's keep it as nice and steady, and let's see.
Ultimately, it's a long-term project, isn't it? It's it's in everyone's best interest that it's done quicker, but ultimately,
it needs to be done right.
And in a way that doesn't stretch. Because that's the thing about this thing about sustainability, isn't it? It's overstretching. We're one of the things you're hearing amongst the fan base is we've had to put up with this. I know, well, we all have, and we've all had to put up with no success for so long, and we're all in the same boat, and we all want things to happen quickly. But this is a long-term vision for the town and for the club, and hopefully success on the pitch will go in line with it, but not overstretching the football club and your business and this whole project is crucial to it actually succeeding in it. It sounds to me.
I think it just my mind's just triggered something actually. There's been a bit of a delay. Obviously, I've mentioned it at a fans forum seems ages ago now. That we're about to announce. Now, what's I guess quite humbling is that we've obviously had a change of government. So that we was expecting what was called levelling up money, and then obviously we had a change of government, which rightly I think it's that new government's come in. Let's put a pause on everything, reassess everything, and it's been reassessed. And that's a really good idea. That needs to be cracked on with. So we had actually started on the top floor. Now there was quite a bit of works to be done. So very few people have been up on the top floor, but when we bought the club and the ground, the top floor was again probably nearly finished. There was petitions up there. There was cisterns on the wall. There was basically the first fixed toilets were done. A lot of these, the central heating and the ventilation was in place, but that was for obviously a banqueting kind of option. We've obviously chose to go down a different route of education. So heartbreakingly, that's an absolute, all that needed to be ripped out, all the ventilation, because there was huge ventilation for, Michelin starred restaurant, which there's a hell of a lot of, ventilation required for that. So all that ductwork had to be thrown away. Anyway, so we started that, and there's been some incredible contractors. I'm going to give John Givens a shout really, because he started and assisted us on the top floor on the hope that we'll be getting the money. He said, well, we've got to get cracking because the students are coming in September. So we went, okay then, and we did, and we started. And if you go up on the top there's that's reminding me to have some juice. And then, so we started, and then it was like, well, hang on a minute, we're not 100% sure that's happening, so we had to put a handbrake on that. So when you go up there now, there's literally stacks and stacks of plasterboard, because we got the plasterboard up there, which was no mean feat either. We had to take a window out and put that through. So, there's quite a bit moved along. So just my point is really that we've had different leaders in that time at Oldham Council. The government's changed, and that's a cracking idea. We have had Andy Burnham up on the top floor quite a while now, but he was fully behind it, and he said, if I can't level up the discrepancies between North and South Manchester, how can I go down to London and talk about levelling up the North and South of England? And he's obviously backed United and £1 billion down there, so we only need 100 million. You know what I mean? But I make light of it. But I mean, that's the North Manchester doesn't have any significant presence from any university. We're and as a global brand, Manchester's incredible. So I think being a sports town in Oldham, if you stand on that top floor, the views are incredible. I can't wait for it to open as a social space. But you obviously can see Mills, and you can see the Civic Centre, and if Civic Centre could well be, student accommodation, and then that makes the Manchester night economy much better. And I think if I was a student, they said, okay, you can go to a sports facility, and they've got, obviously with Clayton playing fields, there's 7 or 8 football pitches, there's green space, being part of a professional and also a professional clubs, and then you can stay in Oldham, which is relatively cheap to live in. But if you want to go to Manchester, you're only a tram ride away. I can see that's a really good offer for any students. So I think in terms of the most likely, and the power that Andy Burnham and the mayors have been given, and also having Jim McMahon as well, who's a Secretary of State who's driving all the devolution. He's excited about what we're doing also. So to have our council, which is incredible, the MPs which are right behind us, and the mayor, then I think we could be a really good case study for £5 million there was about to be a roundabout, wasn't there, in Shaw, a renovation of a roundabout for £5 million. Well, in terms of value for taxpayers' money, we're going to deliver a university for £5 million. So, I mean, it's incredible value for money for Oldham as a town, So I know if I was a taxpayer, £5 million is a hell of a lot of money, and it is. But also in the grand scheme of things, it's the same money for renovation of a roundabout. You can have a university. Well, I know which one I'd choose.
The thing is, it's like you said, there's a lot of moving parts in there. There's things change in the world, things change globally, locally, politically. There's lots and lots of moving parts. So trying to make things happen that are big infrastructure projects, things like this, it's not easy. And you have to duck and dive, and you have to make a lot of friends, and there's a lot of wheels you need to grease and all that kind of stuff. And it's not easy. I'm just delighted that there's an actual vision for it, and that it makes sense, and it's around sport, and we can stop talking about people building houses on all the land around Boundary Park and all the other things that we've heard over the years. It seems in a way, while you were talking about all that stuff is in a way is kind of easier to manage and predict than the football side of things, because like you can say for £5 million we're going to have this university, we're going to have this, we're going to have this. You put £5 million into football side of things, you don't necessarily get the results and the success that you want on the pitch. Yeah. Is that something that you find frustrating? I mean, not that we're in a bad position, we're fourth in the playoffs, but the variables are much more different when it comes to the football.
I was chatting to Pete Wild in the Broadway about 18 months ago, and he said exactly that. So you can put all the effort and all the money you want into it, but the uncertainty is what makes sport great. Yeah. And you look at Chelsea; it's written how many times. You know what I mean? It's okay. Budgets and all the rest of it do make a difference and effort and stuff. But as long as we're creating the environment that it's much more likely to be within our means as well. And not overstretching ourselves, then that's all we can do, isn't it? So you're right. In a way, in business, you can predict a hell of a lot more than you can in sport. That's without a doubt. Yeah.
And how are you feeling at this stage in the season? Because it's been a bit. We talked about roller coasters. It's been a bit like that this season, hasn't it? We went from being absolutely superb before Christmas to being quite poor after Christmas, let's say, but still having racked up all the points, we're still in that great position. How much headspace and nerves is the current situation taking up? Because it's exciting. I'm excited by being fourth and looking forward to a trip to Wembley. Potentially, it's the first time since it's nearly 20 years since we've been in the playoffs. So, how are you all feeling about where we're at now?
One day at a time.
There won't be a better feeling than when they go to Wembley and get promoted. I mean, that'd be something, wouldn't it? I think just watching the games. I get so wound up by things. I just can't, because it matters. Do you know what I mean? It matters so much. Okay, it matters financially. Clearly, it does. But I go nuts watching tiddlywinks. So just watching how the football club is. But when it'll matter as much as a playoff or look, there's going to be memories, aren't there? Do you know what I mean? And if I think it'll. I remember watching Wrexham when they got promoted and just watching the scenes on the pitch. Obviously, that they were fortunate that it was actually on their own ground, and absolutely awesome. Do you know what I mean? And you think that'd be absolutely incredible, and it'd be equally good at Wembley. But we'll get there. We'll get there. We just can't say yes, that's definitely going to happen, can we? But I think the injuries are obviously subsiding a hell of a lot, and so Manny walking fairly freely yesterday, which is obviously
we've missed him, and but that's what happens in football over a season, and it's a long hard season, isn't it? Have the preparations started for next season? Are you already looking ahead? I mean, obviously we've got a lot of players that are out of contract, and I guess you'll be looking at if we go up and if we don't go up, two different scenarios, and is that kind of thing started to. Or is it? Or I guess it must be in the background. I bet you'd expect Mickey taking it one day at a time, sort of thing, one game at a time. Or is he? Is that?
I think the way he's set his back room up has helped him to have a medium-term focus as well. And that's they are very focused on the next game and how the team play and how they'll beat them how they'll defend against them. But the head of recruitment has done a great job, I think, since January, where it was difficult. We lost 4 midfielders through injury or loans going back. And the replacements, lads that have come in, Pett and Rossiter, have been brilliant.
Yeah.
To get those, it's not sometimes identifying players is easy. Sometimes it's getting them. So
and the goalie
and the goalkeeper
been a great
as well.
Signing, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's done really well. Yeah.
And I
it's
think
Doherty, is it? Doherty?
Yeah. So I think the summer, again, there's players out of contract. There's players playing for their next contract, which you want people to be hungry and working towards that. And some people need that, and some people don't. And there's targets that they are identifying, and people that they want to retain as well. So those conversations are going on. That planning is going on with that group of staff, including Mickey, Gary Brabin, as well. So it's not just we get to the end of the season and go, what next?
Of course. Yeah.
They are thinking and looking at that next stage. Pre-season's already booked and planned out. They're looking at friendlies as well and the phasing of that when they go, who they play. So that's the kind of things you can put in place medium term, and obviously that costs money again. Which these guys have supported with. So they'll be going to St Andrews for a week, intense training again. The players, which was I think we all saw the benefits of that. They came back in really good condition. It's a really good environment. We're not massively overzealous with that. Fylde were up there as well. So there's other National League teams that are putting that level of resource in to try and prepare. So those kinds of conversations and planning have gone on, and it's satisfactory to see that that's all in place.
I mean, it feels to me like, because obviously third year, I know you need to get going soon, so I've got my eye on the time, but it seems like, because we had the 3 years in, different players coming through, signed by different managers. We've got like Nuttall, Willoughby, Reid out on loan, things like that. It feels like at the end of this season, it'll be a bit of a clean slate, and that, the quality of some of the players that have been brought in, whether they'll stay or not. You mentioned Pett and Roster and stuff, but look at Manny and Regan Ogle and Conlon and players that have come in that Mickey's signed. For me, it looks like with another summer of recruitment, like regardless of what division we're in, because it's going to be playoffs, you don't know what's going to happen. But I feel like the squad and the identity of the team is going to be a lot more like what Mickey would have envisaged it being had he had the opportunity, because there's been a lot of sort of overspill, hasn't there, from previous manager and things like that. So do you think that would be a bit more sort of next season would be a bit more of a sort of like a better indication of for Mickey and what he's about and how he can, a Mickey Mellon team, if you like.
Yeah, I think I just want to cross over with rugby, really, is that you speak to Mike Ford. Mike Ford's been at the top of coaching. He coached Johnny Wilkinson in Toulon. That is literally like being the equivalent of being a manager at PSG. It really is the top of top of his world. And he said to me, you can only really base your opinion on a manager after they've had 2 pre-seasons. And I think that's probably exactly what you're saying there, is that you're the legacy the legacy contracts and that need to be, I guess, washed through the system. Yeah. That then it genuinely is right. Okay, this is you got your backroom staff. You know everything, and the pros and the cons in players. And it's there's no certainties when you recruit players, is there?
No.
That it's going to click, and
But it's been years since we had a manager see out a full season. So just to have that, I've been saying it for years. Like, what we need is stability in terms of the management, the coaching, and the background, and we've just not had it. We've just not had it at all. And I think that all right, fans are fans, and we analyse things and we're critical this, that, and the other. But that I think is that stability at the football club in terms of just the owners, the senior management, the football staff, players having going on a journey together over a period of time is really, really important. I think a lot of fans sort of, we look at other clubs and go, well, why are Barnet doing this? Why are Bromley doing this? Well, because they've had that stability within the football club for a long time, and they're going through a journey. And I said to you, we had a chat at that Madlow event about us going up, and I said I don't know if we'll go up. I said actually at the time, because we were playing pretty badly, I don't think we'll go up playing like we are. I don't know now. I think we've got players coming back, and I feel like we on any given day we could still do it. But sometimes going through that disappointment of not making it is the fuel that sets you through. They've all done it. Barnet 2 playoffs, and now they've gone on to win the league. Chesterfield failed in the playoffs. Wrexham failed in the playoffs. Sometimes dealing with that disappointment is part of the journey. So for me, that's why I'm hope we do it this season, but I'm confident that next season things will be better. The team will be more will be fired up by not making it, and that I feel that we'll be challenging towards. That's the hope. I'm sure you all think you're all nodding. Yeah, Matt, that's exactly what we hope is going to happen. But
in a dream, let's get up this year. But if we don't, then
it's not the end of the world, is it? That's the thing. It's not the end of the world if we don't go up. It's that sport. It's perennial. It goes on each year after year. You just have to brush yourself down. You have to get on with it. But as long as the club and everything that you've talked about in terms of SportsTown, as that gets nearer and nearer every season as well, then the chances of us, doing well on the pitch just improve that little bit more. Would you have a message for the fans just to close in terms of how they can help? I mean, obviously we'll buy our season tickets, but with this whole project, how do we help get behind it? And how do we help get behind you? And how do we help get behind the club? And just in our own little way, help towards making these things happen a little bit quicker.
I think that one of the highlights this year was Tranmere away, and the fans were absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, it was a great
12 man on the pitch, the atmosphere created, and I think that it shows, and it shows at other clubs as well, where if we can all get behind the team. And one of the best things in the Rochdale game was it was a tough game to watch, and we went a goal down, and the fans all got behind the team, they got behind the manager, and lo and behold, we pulled a draw off. We'd want to win, of course we want to win, but we got a draw. But the atmosphere and to score later on,
like
was
we did
great.
Against Altrincham as well when we went 2 down, didn't we? And we came, the crowd didn't lose faith, and that was good as well. Yeah.
And I think there's a big difference this year. Looking at last year and this year in terms of the squad, the culture's different as well. And I think there's a real urgency and passion with the players, more so probably than last year, thinking it through. And I think that, fans aren't stupid. They pick up on that. They see the effort going in. And there's been some ugly performances where we've just had to get a point. And, I think the manager and the players all want to play nice football, but getting points and winning games is just as important. So for me, it would be say thank you. The support home and away has been phenomenal again. It's not cheap, and it's not easy as well when we've not won anything for so long, and to have such a loyal support is amazing. We're really privileged for that. So I'd want to say thank you. Just get behind the boys and cheer them on. And if things aren't going our way, they can make a difference. They can, everyone plays better when they're being cheered and not jeered. So they have been fantastic, the fans.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I think it's just support, isn't it? We support the club. The fans support the club in any which way you can. And, that might not necessarily mean, coming to, every single game, but season tickets are really important. Cash flow is a big thing. But it's also been positive about. I know it's probably not in our DNA as Oldham, as we like to be a bit dour, don't we? But be positive about Oldham. And if you're speaking to people, say, "Oh, come to Laticsmind, it's the football's rubbish." No, actually, say no, it's not. Actually, it's a really good atmosphere. And when we get behind when we get when we get behind the team, it's incredible. And if we can emanate that positivity across the borough, and bring your mates, bring somebody from, you know, of your family and whatever, you know, there's nothing better than seeing 3 generations of supporters at the ground. You know, with our friend the geriatrico, and, you know, doesn't even live in Oldham anymore, you know, and he brings his grandson, who's the only kid in Chorley who has a Latics top, we think, you know, and, you know, seeing that is just amazing. And the more people bring, and you know, that supports us. You know, I mean, we're doing, as we say, we're walking that line of the balance of making sure that we do as much as we can, because it is, the football club's a catalyst for, you know, positivity. You know, what makes Oldham different to any other town around here, compared, like, you know, Halifax, for example, you know, similar sized town. But people know about Oldham because of the football club, you know, and even look at like Manchester. People know Manchester globally because of the football club, and really, what's the big difference? Well, it's the support, and it's the size of the support base, and the, you know, that we're still getting amazing crowds, and we you know, it makes it all worthwhile, to be honest. Yeah. You know, so yeah, you know, obviously the season tickets will be on sale shortly. We've got some little bits of ideas there. We've kept it as low as we possibly could. But yeah, just please support us as much as you can, because we'll continue to support, because we're really, really grateful for that. Because if there wasn't support behind us, it'd be a hell of a lot more difficult, and we would be able to do less long-term good things.
I'm hoping, I'm looking forward to the playoffs at Boundary Park, getting it packed. It's going to be like a cup atmosphere. You know, you think back to some of the great cup games that we've had at Boundary Park over the years. It's something different with those one-off games. And I just think that is going to be the spark for a lot of people, where we get in there and we see the potential all comes together, especially if we can win. Yeah. I mean, that, you know, but the atmosphere, the packed stadium, it's like a lot of people haven't really seen it, apart from on the odd occasion where, you know, we've had the odd game, and in fairness, like over, like, you know, the Kidderminster game, for example, it was a massive fail, wasn't it? Epic fail. But, like, you know, we it's a special place when it's full, and success breeds success, done it? So we just need, let's just get to Wembley. And I think we can all take it on the chin. It'll be hugely disappointing if we don't go, but we get to Wembley. But getting to Wembley will be a huge milestone. I've not been back to Wembley. I've been to Wembley once, and that was it the 12th of April 1990 or whatever it was, for the League Cup final. And I said, I'm not going back there until Latics get there. So, like, come on, please. This season would be great. But look, on behalf of our podcast and We Are Oldham, thanks for coming in. On behalf of us fans, like, thanks for spending so much money, but not just that, by being here and having a vision and trying to make it happen. Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Like, you've got the intention, you're trying, you've got a vision. I hope it comes off. We want the people of Oldham believe in it and get behind it, and get behind the rugby, get behind the football, get behind the netball. And, you know, in 10 years' time, you know, we might be having a conversation and, like, looking and saying, wow, you know, wow.
Oh, no, we will be.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and just Oldham fans, we need to just let go of all that negativity, let go of all that, the history, and just believe in better, to coin a phrase.
No, thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in. Darren Royle, Luke Rothwell, Sue Schofield, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, Matt.